This is the Wealth Standard Radio, your gold standard in everything financial.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Wealth Standard Podcast. This is episode 216, and I have a treat for you today, and his name is Naresh Vissa. And Naresh and I have known each other for a number of years. He's a client of ours. He's spoken on the Cash Flow Wealth Summit, but he just came out with a book that is really getting some people fired up, and it's called Trumpbook: How Digital Liberals Silenced a Nation into Making America Hate Again. And it's been really cool to talk to Naresh about this book and the response that it's getting. We're going to get into all of those details in just a moment. So you're in for a treat. And then look to the show notes for some contact information for Naresh. You can also visit his website, Naresh Vissa, Vissa.com. Really fascinating guy. I love my conversations with him, and you guys are definitely going to see the perspective he has as a marketing professional that has worked with so many different companies. The take that he has on Trump and what has occurred, not just leading up to the election, but since. And it was really a fun podcast. And then next week, I have another special guest and a really good friend of mine. He should be no stranger to many of you. His name's Tom Wheelwright. And we're going to get into the Trump tax plan and looking at my interview with Stephen Moore a few weeks ago about his book that's coming out called Trumponomics, based on his insight, and not just insight, but really his being the Trump tax advisor. It's been interesting. I want to get Tom's take on it because Tom, of course, is a CPA, also one of the most renowned tax advisors in the country, and tax advisor to Robert Kiyosaki. He's also one of the Rich Dad advisors. So I can't wait to talk to him about what his take is on the Trump tax plan. And then finally, just another plug for the Meet the Masters event this coming January. And I just heard that there is a special guest actually, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. I just didn't know that it was finalized, but the special guest is going to be Ron Paul. He will be the keynote speaker at the Meet the Masters event. So you definitely want to sign up. And if you are local and can drive to La Jolla, it definitely is going to be an event worth attending. And I'm obviously going to be speaking, and Tom Wheelwright will be speaking as well as Garrett Sutton and several others. So I can't wait for that event in just a couple months, and I hopefully will be able to see you and meet you there. All right, that's it. Let's go ahead and get to the interview with Naresh. So this is episode 216, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, Naresh, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have this interview. First, tell us where you're coming to us from.
Well, first off, Pat, it's a pleasure to be on. First time guest on the show, even after all these years. And I am coming to you from not the United States, not North America, but from India. I'm overseas in a hotel right now. My brother's getting married in a couple of days. So I'm here. Well, it's actually like a 4 or 5 day wedding, but the real wedding is the real ceremonies in a couple of days. So that's what I'm up to right now. It's evening for me, morning for you.
Well, I'm glad we can make it work. Yeah, it definitely is a little earlier than I'm used to do an interview, but this topic will get probably a lot of juices flowing, including our own. It's on your new book, right? And you've written a few books so far, mostly on marketing topics. But this new one, you ventured out of that realm a little bit, still integrating some of the marketing aspect of our now president. But why don't you, give us a backstory on why you came up with the idea to write a book on Donald Trump?
It's a great question. It's not something that I planned to do. What happened was, Patrick, it was the day after the election. And before we get to the day after the election, the months leading up to the election, there was all sorts of stuff, noise, whatever you want to call it, on social media, particularly Facebook. And I had never seen such a charged political environment. 2012, 2008 those were the first time social media was used in politics, and it was bad, but it wasn't horrible. It wasn't, unfriend, block. In 2016, it became incredibly charged, and the day after the election, the Facebook just went ballistic. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, are you on Facebook?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm actually like glued to it today, just seeing all these crazy posts, crying and taken off of work and school, and leaving the country, and my life is over. I have no future. My kids have no future." Just crazy, crazy posts. And my friend called me and he said, "Look, these posts are really crazy. You need to do something with it. I don't know what, but you need to do something. I know you're capable of doing something with it." So then kind of the light bulb went off and I said, "You're onto something. Let me start compiling some of the craziest posts that I come across on Facebook." So over a period of from November of last year all the way through this past summer, I started compiling posts that I saw on Facebook that really struck a chord, whether it be topical or just plain, I have no other word for it, but just plain stupidity, fear. I just started compiling it all. And that was the genesis of Trumpbook. It is Trumpbook shows people not just those crazy idiotic posts, but it also goes into detail, provides research data and analysis on how these posts, how Donald Trump's biggest detractors were actually his biggest supporters, and how they got him elected in 2016. Without them, there is no President Trump. So that's what the book is about.
So let's step back first and create a little context, right? Because you're not this like hardcore Trump guy.
No, I'm not a hardcore Trump guy at all. And the first chapter in the book, I had to really make it clear that I didn't vote. I didn't vote in 2016 for anybody. And I go into detail about the vote shaming that I faced from anti-Trump folks because I didn't vote. You lost us the election. It's people like you who are destroying this country, blah, blah, blah. And so I told them, I said, "Oh, so you want me to vote in 2020? And they said, yes. And I said, "Okay, well then I'll vote for Trump if you really want me to vote." And they said, "Oh, no, don't vote, don't vote, don't vote." So yeah, I'm not a huge Trump supporter by any means. There are some qualities in him that I do like, just like there were some qualities in Hillary Clinton that I liked as well. And I get a lot of heat from the right or the alt-right or whatever you want to call it for even praising Hillary Clinton for anything. I think she deserves praise for anything, in any aspect, right? So I'm not a big Trump guy, but I saw these posts and I was just fascinated by the way this man just came on the scene. He basically took over a ball that was on.
He dominated, right. I would say.
From the start. And I saw that on the first debate. I wasn't really... I was
going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So I wasn't really... I had never even watched a full debate in my life. And the first debate, I saw all these people on Facebook posting stuff. So I was like, man, why is everyone posting stuff? Let me just check it out. So I saw a little bit of the first debate. Then when I was like, man, this is a pretty entertaining debate. Let's watch the second one. So a few weeks later, I saw the entire second debate from beginning to end. It
was the same thing.
That's when I said, this guy, I think he went from not even being in the top 10 to at the end of the second debate being in the top 3. And I said, this guy's going to win it simply because he's got the target on his back. He's going after everybody and everybody's going after him. They're singling him out. The questions are geared towards him. Mm-hmm. The media coverage is all about him. I don't care what they're talking about, what they're saying. I care more about, and I dig into the data on Trumpbook about basically the more you're talked about, the more you're going to win.
Yep.
So the more likely you're going to win.
I think
And so he
Obama had that going for him as well. I mean,
Obama absolutely.
documentaries coming out about him. I mean, it was it was a similar dynamic, but Trump took it to another level. I think with the use of social media, specifically Twitter, because Obama was, President Obama was more passive about it, but Donald Trump was anything but passive. He knew exactly what he was doing, and we've had some podcasts in the past that have talked about it, and he's been a master influencer, a master negotiator, and so it shouldn't be surprising. But yet at the same time, the actual results, so what he actually does say and do, you wouldn't think that he really had his game plan together.
Well, I'll say this. I don't know Trump personally. I sent the White House a couple of copies of the book, and we'll see if I get any type of response. When I say, I have no idea if this was all planned out or if he just got lucky, but it worked. Whatever he did, it absolutely worked. Now, what I can tell you, and a lot of people don't know this, Trump ran in 2000 for president. He was an independent, and he actually ran on a very left-wing kind of socialist platform. He wanted universal health care. He wanted Hillary care, actually. And he wanted Oprah to be his VP, and he and Oprah were buddies. He was a very different candidate. And if you look at some of his interviews from the 90s and in 2000 when he ran, that was a very different Trump in front of the camera. As crazy as it sounds, it was a much more articulate, smarter, kind of over your head kind of Trump, more logical over your head Trump. And so either he changed his style, and I'll get into somebody who he hired to do some data analysis, but either he changed his style on purpose or he just got older, and because he got older, his mind changed, and now he is who he is. But he hired a guy here where I am in Hyderabad, India. He hired a computer scientist to basically look at trends within each state and to use specific words that really trigger emotions in those states.
Wow.
This is some high level of data analysis that Trump was using, that Clinton didn't use, Trump's opponents in the Republican Party didn't use. And this guy is now, he works, I don't know, he's doing something for Trump now in the White House, but he worked with the speechwriter and worked with Trump to really hit or to touch on certain trigger words and certain topics to really get those, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those swing states who people thought Trump had no chance of winning. In the end, it worked. And he tried using every tool in the book. It got very dirty. And so the book goes into those details, the data stuff, and I'll give it away. But at the end of the book, I have a chapter on how to defeat Trump in 2020, which I don't think any of what I call digital liberals are going to follow. And by the way, the book's title is Trumpbook, How Digital Liberals Silenced the Nation into Making America Hate Again. So I include how to defeat him in 2020. I don't think the digital liberals are going to follow that based on what I keep seeing on social media. And then I also include at the very end a chapter on why he's going to get reelected in 2020. And I still think it's going to happen. I do think I know this is your show today is about taxes. The tax cuts are a very, very big deal. And if a good referendum is not passed by, I would say, early next year, then I think that's going to affect the midterms greatly. And there would be some chance of defeating Trump in 2020. And I do think something good is going to get passed for the Republicans, and all will be well. But barring that tax issue, it's looking like a landslide because people don't want to go up against him. You go up against him and you need to be ready it's going to get dirty. You need to be ready to be shamed. You only get one chance. And I don't think anybody wants to go up against him.
No, because let's take this angle. So what you're seeing on social media is really stereotypical of social media, where you have these emotionally driven debates. And it's not just the Trump thing. It's like everything, every topic you can possibly think of. But if you look at that angle of making a statement or making an argument and trying to win the argument, you never win, right? Taking the emotional angle. And so looking at where people are at on social media, what they're saying about Trump and how it's actually providing fuel to him. What is that dynamic? Why isn't their anger, their I would say borderline hatred toward him and anything that he talks about or anything that he says? Like, why do they continue to spin their wheels with that angle of trying to make a difference or create some element?
People don't they think they hate on a candidate, the greater chance that the candidate's going to lose. And I tried conversing with these people on Facebook. I was a victim of bullying, of being blocked, being unfriended, being called names, and that was another genesis for writing the book, because I knew that I wasn't the only one. I heard it from so many different people who said, I can't post anything on my Facebook. I can't talk about politics because I support Trump or because I'm going to vote for Trump.
Just using his name.
Just using his name, right. And so I dedicated my book to 4 different elements. Element 1 was digital liberals, because they made it very easy for me to copy and paste their posts and to create a book out of it. Number 2 was President Obama, who I actually praise. I think Obama gets a lot of heat, but just go into a little bit of detail about how I met Obama long before he ran for president. And anyway, then I talked about my 3rd dedication, which was to the year 2016. 2016 was just a wild year with Trump. It only fit that Trump won. You had the EU, Brexit, Chicago Cubs being down 3-1 in the World Series. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, that was just probably the craziest thing to happen in a baseball fan's lifetime. You had the Golden State Warriors, who won 73 games in a season, which was never done before. And then they also blew a 3-1 series lead. So it was only fitting that Trump won. And then the 4th dedication went out to people who felt bullied by reading political posts on Facebook. So this book, Trumpbook, essentially gives those people a voice, an outlet, because they don't get it from the mainstream news media. They don't even get it from Fox News. It's really more so that, hey, yeah, you've had to become this silent 49%, but there are 49% of you guys. And this book kind of goes into detail about that.
Well, if we strip away all of the, the angle of preference, okay, the subjective nature of I agree with this or I disagree with that. If you strip all of that away, the message that I would assume, and I haven't read the book, I'm looking at all the chapters right now, but we'll definitely put links to this in the show notes so you guys can check out the book. But as I strip away all of this, there's something to learn, which is the fact that all human beings have this insatiable desire to be heard or express their opinion and be right with that opinion, and they fear more than like death being wrong, right? And I look at really how individuals treated this situation, and I would argue, and I know we've had this conversation before, you're playing right into the hands of Trump. Now, I'm not trying to take any type of side, but talking about what a digital liberal is, the angle that they're taking is basically the angle they would take if they wanted the certainty of losing. If they wanted the certainty of not winning the fight, that is the angle that they take. So it's interesting. I mean, why don't you comment on that a little bit and maybe get more into some details if you're open to that, or unless you want people to read the book.
No.
What it would take to win in 2020? What liberals would have to do in order to win in 2020?
Well, the first thing I want to piggyback off is you don't beat Trump, or in general in life, you're not going to win by giving somebody more attention. By giving Trump more attention, you are making him relevant. You're making him the water cooler talk. You're essentially rallying support for him. There's this, I talk about one of Newton's laws, equal but opposite. And that goes for politics as well. In this book, I don't say the most loved candidate wins. I don't say the most uniting candidate wins. I actually believe that the most hated candidate wins. The most divisive candidate wins. And it goes into details about some of the great leaders in our lifetimes who were incredibly hated and who were incredibly divisive. If we go back through history, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, even here in the United States, we had our own Abraham Lincoln. He's very sacred, but people don't know that he was a very divisive person at the time.
Yeah.
At the time. Now we say, oh, he did lots of great things for the slaves, but at the time he was incredibly divisive, incredibly hated, and he ended up being assassinated.
Very hypocritical too.
Very hypocritical too.
Yep.
Absolutely. FDR, same thing. Overseas, here in India, Indira Gandhi was the first female prime minister of India, probably one of the first female leaders in an emerging country. And she was also assassinated, incredibly hated, incredibly divisive. So the first thing I want to say is you don't beat Trump by giving him more attention. Mm-hmm. You beat him by making him irrelevant. Just like the digital liberals made Rand Paul, Ben Carson, Mike Huckabee, all these guys were irrelevant. Even Jeb Bush, irrelevant. They showed up to the debates. They tried to put on a show, get voters, but the digital liberals chose to ignore them and to focus on Trump. Mm-hmm. So if you want to beat him in 2020, then Mark Cuban, for example, said he might run as a Republican against Trump in 2020. Well, focus on Mark Cuban. Don't focus so much on Trump. Yep. Whether it's the positives or the negatives. So that's really step number one in defeating him. But then there are other steps that that these digital liberals need to take, like acceptance. It's like the election is over, yet people don't accept. You see all the time, not my president. The what's going on in the NFL, this guy's not my president. We're not visiting the White House this year. You got to accept the results, what happened, because if you can't move on today, then you're going to lose tomorrow. Yep. And right now, there is zero acceptance on this. Trump's social media activity has been going up, up, up. And I'm talking about his engagements, people writing his name, talking about him, the policies, about the smallest things. It just keeps going up.
And your primary and you gotta take a step back as well, because the lens that you see the world through, and I would say I have kind of a partial lens of that, which is marketing. And marketing, really, especially in this digital age, it's really about playing on emotions. Okay, and that's whether you look at the music of a commercial or the language or the key words that are used. I mean, there's so much that goes into that people are oblivious to. And so looking at the world through that lens, I mean, you're seeing between the lines, and again, stripping away all bias toward, whatever candidate or opinion. I mean, it's something that he's, a master at, and he played the United States and specifically the audience online like a fiddle or I would say an orchestra.
What he did?
Orchestra, where everything that he says is to really incite an emotional response. And when he gets that response, that fuel, it's like gasoline and more logs. I mean, you're fueling the fire. And I'm not saying, for those that are pro-Trump, I'm not trying to make an opinion against or for him. I'm just saying that, really looking at what you're alluding to in your book, there's this interesting, dynamic where those that are responding emotionally, what they're trying to get, they're getting the exact opposite. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, Patrick. So Trump really took the fundamentals. If you read some of the great books of copywriting, sales copy, online sales copy, Trump did a great job. And again, I don't know if he did it on purpose or if he got lucky, but the goal of copywriting is to write at a second or third grade level so that the average human being can understand what you're saying. And that's what Trump does. He repeats himself constantly, and it comes across as kind of just stupid to some people, but to the masses,
psychology is
exactly.
very conspicuous.
And so the goal with copy, if you're reading something, you're going to stop reading if it's boring. The goal with copy is to incite, whether it's positive or negative. You want to touch on the emotions. And so he mastered the art of what's called newsjacking. Newsjacking is the science of injecting one's ideas into a story so that the ideas and their creator get noticed. So the basic formula for newsjacking, Trump took world events or politics, and he added his own hyperbole to sell his ideas.
Even social news.
Even social news, you name it. So there's a shooting in a gay nightclub in Orlando, and people on the left, their response is always, oh, let's ban guns. People are tired of that response. We hear that all the time. A major gun event happened. It doesn't really strike up too many emotions, but Trump took it to the next level. And yes, it might have come across as racist or wrong, but he said, I'm calling for a ban today. If I were president, I'd call for a ban right now on all Muslims entering the United States. They're a threat to this country, blah, blah, blah. And yes, he pissed off all the digital liberals. He pissed off a ton of people, all the Muslims. But there is that segment of the population who are not racist. They're not racist. They just want to feel safer and know that they're going to put a leader into office who is going to take this stuff seriously and not just come into office and, do nothing and just give speeches, which is what a lot of presidents have done in the past. So that's essentially, it's like you can't just ban a religion. That's completely unconstitutional. It's never going to pass. And that's why his bans, not on Islam, but on certain countries, have had to go through the courts because they're still going through the constitutionality of all of it. But just the idea of this man wants to keep our country safe. He wants to stand up for us. That went a long way with a ton of voters. And the same goes with illegal immigration, not immigration, but illegal immigration. People who are coming in, taking the benefits that the United States provides, doing other bad things. And his solution was, look, you can still come to this country. Just go through the process like all the other people. Get your paperwork and you can come to this country and do what you'd like. We're not going to just let in random people. So anyway, newsjacking is a term that I go into detail about. Trump did a great job of newsjacking because it ties into the mainstream news media. When the candidate says something crazy through newsjacking, the news media loves it and they run with it and they give it. Trump spent less than half of what Hillary Clinton spent on advertising and promotion because of all the coverage that he and his ideas were getting.
Yeah. Well, let's do this because it's a fascinating topic, and I didn't know you were writing this book until just about a month ago, and there's so much in here. I mean, some of these chapter topics look absolutely fascinating. But let's maybe touch with the final minutes that we have. Let's touch on the book's not even out yet, but let's touch on the response that you're getting already, because you sent this book out to quite a few people, and specifically you have chapters on some of the professional athletes that are trying to make a difference given their social status, and then also some Hollywood actors. I mean, why don't you touch on some of the response that you're getting, whether it's from media or whether it's from some of those social icons?
Yeah, Pat, it's actually been a struggle. Just like digital liberals have silenced a nation or silenced the silent 49%. My book, I don't want to say I've been silenced, but my book has been silenced by some of my book promoting partners, book marketing partners, people who I've worked with for years. And I don't think your audience knows. So my background, I run an online and digital agency, and we provide pretty much every service imaginable, online and digital. I've worked with you, Pat, for years. I've worked with many other people, publicly traded companies, Fortune 100 companies. And so my background is on online and digital. And this book merges that with politics in the 2016 election. So I know how to market books. I've sold more than 10,000 books over my lifetime. Not me personally, but tens of thousands of books over the last 3 or 4 years. I know how to market. I know how to market books. But this is a different case where the partners are not working with me because they said, this is too controversial. This pisses off our audience. They're not doing anything. And it's unfortunate because these are the same people who are promoting and marketing retired Democratic congressman books, Hillary Clinton's new book, basically the other side. And so it's been a challenge, and that's why, I'm here talking to you about it, and I'm going on some other alternative media outlets to talk more about it in depth. So it's been a challenge, and I've sent the books to people who I've targeted, not targeted, but who I've kind of called out in the book, Hollywood actors and actresses about some of their statements that they've made, other politicians, Mark Cuban's running in 2020, some of the athletes and coaches. I specifically have an entire chapter dedicated to 3 NBA coaches, and I sent them all free copies of the book, and they've responded back. People have responded back, and I was actually impressed with some of them saying that they've read parts of the book and they're going to check it out during their All-Star break or in the off season, and they're pretty open to the ideas there. But these guys, these athletes, celebrities, they live in their own bubble. They're out of touch with reality. They know next to nothing about the issues. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed, because I've actually gone back and forth via email with some of these guys. I mean, I'll say Detroit Pistons head coach Stan Van Gundy, we've gone back and forth via email, and he's a great guy, and his team's off to a great start this year. I wish them all the best. But when I look at what he says about Trump and about the system, I think the bottom line with these people is they are products of corporatism. They got lucky to get a job that pays them literally tens of millions of dollars every year. They have tens of millions of dollars in the bank, assuming that they didn't spend it all, which a lot of them do. And so they think it's an easy thing. Oh yeah, just hire more people. Just hire more people, give them jobs, or just government needs to give people, money or provide this, provide that. And they don't really understand what the average middle American goes through.
No, and it's a great point, because if you look at superficiality of what they're saying, but I would say it comes back to the same thing, right? It's they're using their social status really to put a stake in the ground, but in the end, whether you look at like the NFL players, taking a knee during the national anthem, or whether you look at statements that coaches are making, or Hollywood actors, it's one of those things where they're playing right into the hands of the narrative and what Trump is trying to get as a response, in my opinion. But it's good that you got some good response, and I'm sure that's going to create some momentum for you. But maybe talk about some of the goals that you have with the book. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's the idea behind, really pulling out some of the strategic angles of Trump and what he's been able to do to, the media and just to society in general?
Well, initially, when I write my books, so I've written, we didn't go over this, but I've written a couple of books on online and digital business, online marketing, digital marketing, podcasting, etc. It's usually an idea that I have, and then I run with the idea because I'm onto something. In this case, it was a hot topic, and there's just so much to talk about. It's not a simple, 250 words that can be summed up. There's so much to talk about. And I didn't really think about the end goal, but surprisingly, already as a result, I've gotten clients from the political space, like former congressmen from both sides, Democrats and Republicans.
Wow.
And these are people who don't know much, let's say close to nothing about online. And these are people who don't know what GoDaddy is, how to get a website, the benefits of being online. They're really old school. That's kind of how DC is. And so if that happens, great. If that continues, I think I can help a lot of these politicians with their online and digital strategy, because whoever wins online and digital is going to win it all.
Yep.
Think
about it. And maybe you did some research into this, but I would say if you look at, the Hillary campaign, okay, I would just assume, I'm just making assumptions, but you would assume that the marketers that were hired, those that, gave Hillary, information, details of how she should respond, they were probably totally, subjectively bought into her message, her narrative, her philosophy. And so the glasses they put on removed the possibility of being objective and responding in a way that would have made a difference, right? Because you can imagine they, probably just bought into making the emotional, irrational type of statements as a reaction to his, silliness sometimes. What did you find with the marketing angle of Hillary Clinton's campaign? Was there some truth to that, or?
Yeah. Well, so there were a couple of issues there. Number one is she didn't come across as real. She had people running her social and online media, whereas, breaking story or top headline for CNN was some tweet that Trump put out. And you couldn't take Clinton's Twitter profile, Facebook profile seriously because of that, because she probably didn't know how to use it. And a lot of these politicians don't know how to use smartphones and how to stay up to date on the technology. The second thing is her message became, and it didn't start out like this, but her message became me versus him.
Yeah.
Whereas Trump's message from the start was us versus them. And the them was everybody.
Yep.
Everybody else. Hillary just kind of focused on him. And in her commercials were basically advertisements for Trump, because she featured him. She took snippets from his speeches or press conferences, and you didn't even see her. She didn't even put herself in half of the advertisements. And I'm wondering, why is she spending all this money? She raised all this money and she's spending millions of dollars to show Donald Trump's face and give him more airtime.
That's so true.
And at the time when it happened, I was telling people, I said, I can't believe, because a lot of these digital liberals posted on Facebook saying, oh, amazing ad, this is great. And I would just comment and say, this is really dumb. I don't know why she's not focusing on herself,
Yeah.
So I think the next person will do a better job at that.
Did you have anything in the book about some of the pet names that Donald Trump created for all of his opponents? I know he had, Lion Ted Cruz, Crooked Hillary. I can't remember some of the other ones, but what was your take on that? Was that strategy, or was that just, silliness?
Well, again, back to what I said. It was great. It was genius what he did. Whether he did it on purpose or not, I have no idea. Yeah. But Crooked Hillary, Pocahontas, even though she wasn't a competitor.
Yeah.
Those really caught on. And then Saturday Night Live, and a lot of these other spoofs, the Daily Shows, Bill Maher, they ran with all this. They ran with it, and it was all about him. 2016 was the year of Trump. So I don't know why so many people were surprised by it. The online data showed that what was really weird for me was the bulk of the online data that showed that George W. Bush would win in 2004, Obama would win in 2008 and 2012. That same data, the Google Trends, the online engagements, the same data showed that Trump was double what Obama was in 2008.
Wow.
And at the same time, the polls and Vegas, he was getting creamed. And
Yeah.
so
Oh, I remember.
it,
Yeah, I remember that.
so that's what didn't make sense to me, because on the one hand, I'm looking at this set of data that's like, man, it's a no-brainer that he's going to win it. But on the other hand, you look at some of these gurus who have never been wrong, some of these Vegas bookies who have never been wrong, Nate Silver, who had never gotten a state wrong, and it just completely blew up in all their faces. And so what that told me was online and digital trumps it all.
Okay, Naresh. Well, we could probably go off on so many different tangents, but we'd give the whole book away. So let's leave it at that. So tell the listeners the best way to get the book. And do you have a release date yet?
Yeah. So it's out. It's available.
Oh, it's available. Okay. All right.
Website is nareshvissa.com, NARESHVISSA, nareshvissa.com. You can get on my free mailing list, subscription list, get there. And all my books are available on Amazon. So just go to Amazon, you can type in my name, and it's all there. If you want to find out more about online, digital, podcasting, public relations, really anything e-commerce related, it's all available there.
Okay, beautiful. Well, Naresh, it was awesome. Awesome to have you on. Enjoy the festivities in India, and then we'll definitely get you on in the future.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Pat.
Okay.